Solving some of the world's biggest problems often takes novel or creative ideas. And for those who think outside the box, the results can be very successful. This week on Full Frame, conversations with those who are tackling issues like world hunger, climate change, and other global problems in unusual ways to make the world a better place. I'm Mei Lee in Los Angeles. Let's take it full frame. While some people merely dream of changing the world, for award-winning British filmmaker Richard Curtis, it's a reality. The man behind such international hits as Love Actually and Bridget Jones' Diary is also co-founder of the hugely successful Comic Relief and Red Nose Day fundraising events. In life and on film, Curtis seems to perfectly capture both humor and humanity.
Some days you want to relive forever. Will you marry me?
I think I'll go for yes.
Some days you only want to live once.
I am so uninterested in a life without your father.
It never occurred to me that I might lose you.
I never said you could fix everything. Not without consequences.
So I was wondering if you might care for dinner on Friday night.
Don't you dare!
I'm king of the world!
You got a boyfriend?
I have father, and he's perfect.
Bernard told me he was getting engaged to Lydia. I congratulated him because all his other girlfriends have been such complete dogs. Although, may I say how delighted we are to have so many of them here this evening.
Tell me, are you married?
No.
Are you a lesbian? What made you say that? Which is a bit more interesting than saying, oh dear, just never found the right chap, eh? Right.
They're all such great movies. Well, his most recent venture is Project Everyone, an effort to promote the United Nations 2015 global goals and the 17 objectives to improve 3 critical issues plaguing our world by the year 2030: extreme poverty, climate change, and inequality and injustice. I recently caught up with Richard in New York, where he was attending the annual Social Good Summit. The passionate philanthropist joined other changemakers who are thinking outside the box to make a global impact. You're obviously a very accomplished producer, writer, director of some movies that are beloved worldwide.
Hated by some, hated by some.
Not too many, though, I don't think. I mean, Notting Hill.
My sons are starting to be embarrassed about them.
Oh,
They're
really?
too romantic, too much kissing, yeah.
Oh, no. But well, women, of course, like me, love them. But you also have this other passion, and that is humanitarian and trying to change the world for the better. So that your heart seems to belong to those causes as well. Where does that come from?
Well, I mean, there may be a kind of psychological thing in the background. When I was young, we lived in the Philippines, so I was very aware of the contrast between how we were living and the poorest people. So that was something that worried me when I was young. But strangely, I think it's probably, that I was inspired by somebody doing the kind of thing I try and do now, which was Bob Geldof's Band Aid and Live Aid, and the absolute clarity of him saying it cannot be true that people are starving to death, actually starving in our modern world, that made me think I have to give some time to this. And then I sort of now do the 2 jobs together.
And was that a turning point for you when you saw Live Aid, Band Aid? I mean, because that was really such a momentous occasion worldwide.
Yeah, it was a huge turning point. And what happened was that I volunteered to go with a friend who was going into the area, into Sudan and Ethiopia, to look at the famine, to, as it were, keep her company. And the things that I saw there were probably the most profound turning point, because I saw things of terrible sorrow happening to huge numbers of people. But the strange thing was, the history of what I've done is the charity that I've worked for all these years does comedy, uses comedy to raise money. And one of the things I most remember was going into one of the camps where things were worst, seeing a little child being put into a weighing machine, which was like a sort of nappy. The child was put into the machine and because there was no muscle in its legs, it flipped its leg flipped up and it fell through one leg of this little plastic nappy. And everybody laughed, and I thought, they don't know they're tragic. We're not, people aren't meant to laugh and love, and there's no contradiction in raising money by using laughter.
Right. Well, speaking of laughter, comic relief, that was your baby, and then Red Nose Day, and you've raised $1.5 billion.
Yeah, that's right, so far.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and of course I think it's a sign of the fact that when actually directly faced with other people's suffering and problems, most people in the world are profoundly decent. Most people would not walk on by. And what we do on Red Nose Day is put on a really entertaining night of TV and then intersperse it with films about the need and say to people, you know, you're having a happy night, do you want to give some money? And I think that people really react well to that. And
I like the idea that people are profoundly good at, you know, if you really look at humanity. Do you think that's continually changing for the better? Do you think because people are becoming more aware of the world's ailments and the world's needs that people are willing to try to take action rather than sit back and say, oh, what can I do?
Well, I think that I read this book, or as usual, I read the introduction to a book, because I find books a bit long, just saying that one of the reasons why we think the world is getting worse is because actually it's getting better and we're more aware of and shocked by the things that are cruel and unfair. You know, they used to execute people in the streets in England in 1800 and nobody minded, and now, you know, we don't have anything like that happening. So when cruelty does happen, you think that's absolutely horrific, but it's because there's so much less of it. I mean, one of the reasons that I've been pushing these new global goals for sustainable development is because I think that there are hugely positive things happening, and the news tends to report the negative things.
Yes, we do.
So, you know, and that's in fact one of the arguments of when people say my films are unrealistic. I don't understand that at all, because you see a film about someone being murdered by a serial killer, which has only happened like 4 times in history, and people say that's a searingly realistic film about society. And I make films about people falling in love, which is happening every single street in every single country of the world, and people say it's sentimental and ridiculous. Whereas, so amazing things are happening. Terrible things happen from time to time, but then in the last 15 years, 2 billion people have got clean water, 50 million more kids have gone to school, malaria's been cut by, I think, 710,000 a year, so amazingly good things are happening. And I love the idea of a plan which says actually there is a positive view of how things are going in the world, and that we should really fight for that rather than being demoralized by the bad things.
Well, that's your mission now. Your project is tied to the global goals, the UN global goals. 17 pretty amazingly difficult goals, I would say. 17's
a lot, but there's a chap called John MacArthur, who is a great expert, was one of the people who wrote the Millennium Development Goals, and he was fighting, like I was, for there to be fewer. Okay. And he said he spoke to his mum about it, and she said, that sounds about right. It's a complicated world. You know, if you just try and reduce it to a convenient number. And what's really interesting about these goals is they have a proper and deep analysis of poverty and the problems of the world. You know, they do actually include jobs. They do include industry. They do include equality.
Education.
Education, climate, justice. It's all of these things. It's actually saying if you're going to solve poverty, it will not be just some rich countries giving some money to some poor countries, because that way those countries will always stay poor.
Right.
So I mean, 17, it's been tricky, but
it's overwhelming, though.
No, I don't think it is, because we've been starting to talk to a lot of kids about it, and they look at it, and you say, what's your goal? Which one of these are you interested in? And then they find that exciting. They say, well, this is the one. I'm interested in, the seas. I'm interested in the oceans. I'm interested in equality. And I think that what's confusing is when every time you hear about a problem, you just think, oh, that's another problem, another problem, another problem. And I think that what you could do now is you could take every charity and every NGO, and what's Amnesty? Well, Amnesty is actually peace and justice, is number 16. What's Greenpeace? Well, Greenpeace is climate action 14, 15. So it actually I think, is a big way to organize the feelings of the problems of the world.
Right. So it's a way to map it out almost and sort of direct and categorize what the work is.
What the work to be done is, exactly.
But obviously with your background, being in film and media, you're utilizing your skills to be able to get this word out, to get the messages out, to get, educate
I think that's so important.
Yeah. And you've done it in a creative way, using big names, everyone from Jennifer Lopez to Stephen Hawking to
Jennifer Lopez to Jennifer Lawrence.
Exactly.
The whole long
J-Lo and
journey.
J-Lo. So
Exactly.
It's across the board. There's something to that, right? It does reach the masses that way, doesn't it? And when
that is one of the things. We're also trying to, I've got this slogan in my life, which is to make things happen, you have to make things. You can't just hope. So what we've tried, Liverpool football team wore a shirt which had globals on. We made those shirts so that all the billion people who watch a Liverpool football match will see global goals. We made little films which have gone out. We made a projection to go on the wall of the UN. We made a little book which has got lots and lots of stickers in it that children can stick up. I've just tried to make things. There's no point me, who's a maker of films and entertainment and sketches, coming in and writing a political pamphlet. I wanted to try and make stuff. The ad is great. It's made by Aardman, and what it is the moment when the goals were agreed by every country in the world, but the leader of the world is represented by the animal that represents that country. So the whole UN is full of llamas and turtles and polar bears.
I love
and
that.
Like
That's great.
We have a plan. The global goals for people and planet. To end poverty. To fight inequalities. And to defeat climate change. And I am proud to announce the plan is agreed by everyone.
The United Nations has launched a plan to fight poverty, injustice, and climate change. Tell everyone. Join us at globalgoals.org.
Well, the other side of getting things done, of course, is politics.
Yeah.
Because it's all about policy and people then agreeing to those policies and then executing those policies.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that's where it gets stuck.
Yeah.
There's an agreement, but then there's no execution, or it just falls through the cracks. Is that a frustrating aspect to the work that you're trying to get done?
No, I think it's an important aspect. One of the inspirations for what I'm doing is that Bob Geldof, who I then got to know, said to me once that he made more money in 20 minutes having a cup of tea with President Mitterrand than he did in the whole of Live Aid and Band Aid.
Wow.
He said politics is where the money is. Yeah. But one of the reasons for doing a campaign like this is so that when politicians talk about issues to do with global responsibility, which is a tough thing for politicians because people just want, their own lives to be better first. That's the first thing a politician has to deliver. When politicians talk about those things, people will recognize that it's something that they believe in. So China's just made an enormous commitment to extra aid. Well, we would like the people to feel when they hear that news, that's odd, not that's odd, that's going to people abroad. They say, oh yeah, I read those global goals and I agreed with them. I actually don't want hunger, I actually don't want poverty, I actually do want girls to go to school. So good for that 2 billion, and actually then you allow people within countries to say, well, wait a minute, I've read these goals, and actually you promised. And so I hope that as well as educating people, one, gives cover for politicians and puts pressure on politicians. And of course it's frustrating when politicians don't do the things you hope they will, but my kids don't put on their shoes in the morning. The world's frustrating.
Right. From the little things to the big things, right? Well, let's talk about Asia a little bit more. You just mentioned China and its contribution. Are you putting more focus on efforts in China to try to get a little bit more of a movement going on in that region?
Yeah, we've never not included it. It's always seemed to us incredibly important that we should try and get China involved. If you look at the Millennium Development Goals, the reason why the sort of most important one, which is extreme poverty, the reason that has been halved is enormously due to the improvements in people's lives in China over the last 15 years. Otherwise, we would not, it's not half the world that's got less poor outside China, it's including that. So it seemed to us very important, and we've had, you know, the support of celebrities there, and the support of cinemas there, and the support of schools there. And, you know, it's absolutely crucial with these goals that it's everywhere in the world. And we would absolutely love to feel that China will be an increasingly big player in trying to, you know, make life better, not only in China, but abroad. It's this idea of mutuality.
2030, let's look ahead.
Yeah.
When we get there, what do you think this world is going to look like if these goals are pursued in the way that you'd like them to be pursued?
Well, I think that, you know, you have to really pray there's serious progress on climate change. That has to, I mean, and one of the most important things about this campaign was to set people up to feel passionate for the COP talks in Paris, another area where China's suddenly making really strong, positive moves. You have to hope that we aren't leaving our kids that ghastly inheritance of you know, refugees because of desertification and refugees because of flooding and all those sort of things. So that would be a big thing. I feel there'll be enormous progress on gender equality as well. You would really hope that both in positions of responsibility but also in every single school that those things have happened. You would hope that no one is dying of hunger anymore. That would seem absolutely something that you would pray for. So I think that there are lots of things that we could look forward to. And we probably won't notice them because Brad Pitt will probably be divorcing Angelina Jolie, and everybody will think the world's the most ghastly mess because of that.
You're right.
But actually,
you're right.
I'm hoping that I'll be there on stage in my wheelchair, saying good things have occurred.
And what's next for you then? I mean, obviously you're going to continue all of these projects that you have going, but you seem like a man...
I'm going to write one more film.
You are?
Yeah. I'm going to write one more film, but then I'm going to stop that because I feel as though this is a beautiful and wonderful world and I haven't seen enough of it. And I've spent all my time looking at my fingers, typing, and I should have been traveling. I've been to China once for a week. I'd like to go there for a month. I've never been, you know, to so many wonderful places and, you know, so many films I haven't seen.
Well, we've been blessed with a beautiful planet that we need to take care of, so we got to see it. All right.
That's what I would hope to do. And then I'll keep an eye on the goals and try and write one funny little film a year for 15 years.
Well, we would love that, of course. I think all your fans would love to have more films from you. But we also love the work that you're doing. It's incredible that you're dedicating your time and effort like this.
Well, I had a very happy childhood and a happy life, and if you can make any difference to other people, then that's an easy thing to do.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and we really appreciate all the work that you're doing.
That's so sweet of you.
Coming up next, how one powerhouse technology brand is minimizing the environmental footprint of your electronics. The UN predicts that by 2025, the global population of 7 billion people will soar to 8 billion, making the preservation of our natural resources and protection of the planet more crucial than ever. One person who's acutely aware of this growth is Tricia Thompson, one of the most influential people in the world of sustainability. She's the vice president of corporate responsibility for computer giant Dell, the global leader in sustainable, innovative packaging. Dell is also the biggest technology recycler in the industry. I sat down with Tricia at the 2015 Social Goods Summit in New York City to discuss how Dell's corporate sustainability programs and thinking outside the box are not only benefiting the company, but also the consumer and perhaps most importantly, the environment. So you are here for the Social Goods Summit.
Yes.
Tell me the importance of something like this, a gathering like this. Why should it be done? Why should it be held?
It's on the forefront now of pretty much every national agenda. It's really a great opportunity for people to come together and talk about what's changing, talk about what's innovative now, and share those ideas and really get that forum to share the ideas, and then you can bring them to scale much faster than if you're just sitting in your closet with a great idea.
It's amazing how it has changed, like you're saying, that it is now at the forefront, these issues of social good, corporate social responsibility.
Absolutely.
10 years ago, nobody even knew what that was. So tell me about your experience in seeing that change and how people are starting to really become interested and involved in those ideas.
Yeah, so no, interestingly, I've been at Dell 17 years, and it's been there the whole time I've been there. So Dell's been involved from, the beginning. I mean, Michael started the company with the idea that his products, they have to be designed for recyclability. I mean, so he started thinking about it back in the 1980s when he started the company. So we've had the concept, but it has evolved pretty significantly for us too over the years. But not just for us, so it's really interesting. A big driver is your customer. So while maybe on Dell's agenda, there's a big push too behind us, which is good. All the companies are really starting to look at that, and they're asking us.
That's really interesting that you talk about the customer, because again, sometimes customers only care about the price. Right? They're not thinking about all of these other aspects. Oh, is it good for the environment? Is it bad for the environment? But you're telling me that your customers were pushing this too.
So over 60% of our RFPs from customers, which is a request for proposal, ask us about what we're doing in environmental and social good. So it's a big driver. It's a very big driver.
So when Dell, you said Michael Dell was behind this in the 90s, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That he had that forethought to want to do that in the beginning. How has it evolved for Dell in terms of sustainability and becoming more ecologically friendly and being more so?
So we've always had a good recycling story, and we are still the largest geographically electronics e-waste recycler in the world. So that's been a part of our whole history. But the other changes, we have what I call individual pockets of heroism. We had someone in the packaging who just loved to create interesting packaging that was more environmental. And we had a bunch of these little pockets around the company, and every year we'd sort of cobble it together in a story, until about 2 years ago we launched the 2020 Legacy of Good, and this is the first time we have long-term goals. They all fit within a 21-goal framework. And it's really starting to pull all of these individual acts of heroism together and make it just really, it's embedded across the company. It's in every single part of our company, from our HR to our product design to our facilities. It's everywhere.
And so this is a corporate plan that you guys are pushing within the company.
Yes.
And really try to inspire employees to come up with new innovative ideas.
Absolutely. So that's the impressive part about having long-term goals. So the biggest goal, sort of the overarching goal, is that by 2020, the good that comes from our technology will be 10 times what it takes to create and use it. So basically, it's a net positive story. So you go from being, we want to be less bad, to we want to be kind of zero bad, to those are all bad, right? So now we actually want to do good with our technology. How do you change the world with your technology? And it will be the backbone of what changes sustainability, whether it's smart cities, the Internet of Things. We have smart bees we're working on in Ireland. I mean, so
what are those?
We've set up the Internet of Things with a beehive on top of a facility. Our employees started this.
Like a real
beehive, and we're sharing all of the data. You know, it's 80% of the world's food stuff are bees. So we're sharing that data with bee scientists around the world, because it measures temperature, their flight patterns, it's measuring all the activity of the beehive and the pollution, everything. And so we're sharing that data. So it's all over. But so anyway, we want to do good with the technology, and we really want to see how is that in the embedded value. So that's the overarching goal. And then the other goals are all about your customers. So our product line will be 80% more energy efficient by 2020. What that makes the teams, the engineering teams, think about it, like, okay, how do we get there? And then, because Dell's competitive, it's who we are, how do we beat that? You know, so it really, our packaging, we're going to go to zero waste packaging. So how do you get there? You have to be innovative if you're going to get there.
Well, how do you get there? I mean, innovation, but specifically, you know, what are the advancements that you're seeing at Dell that sets you apart from competitors?
You know, it is amazing the work that's being done. I'll give you a couple stories just out of China. One is packaging. So we're doing Wheatstraw Packaging. So wheat straw is the waste. It's agricultural waste. Today in China, they burn it, which is not good. There's already enough air pollution. So we found one of our suppliers in China is working with us, and they are learning how to turn it into packaging. It's basically a cardboard sort of substitute. So we actually pay the farmers for the wheat straw, so they're making more money and they're not burning it. Then they're turning the wheat straw into a usable product, which is also recyclable, biodegradable. It uses less water, it uses less energy. It's 40% less water, 90% less energy, and it costs less. So that's the kind of innovation that's driven by, you set a long-term goal, you're going to get there. But you're going to think about how do you be creative to get to that next place. We're also, we're the first electronics company that has done this. We're using, we collect the e-waste. We're taking the plastics out of the computers that we've collected, and we're working again with a supplier in China, and we're putting that plastic back into our systems. So it's the perfect circular economy. It's not going to waste. It's an investment in the materials that we have. And it's going back into 34 different systems today. So we're trying to expand that. We're figuring out how do we get it to servers. Right now it's monitors and desktops, but it's a good system, so how do we go expand it?
You mentioned the circular economy, and that's something that I keep reading about when it comes to Dell's programs. Tell me a little bit more about that concept and how that works.
So if you think traditional manufacturing, not just US but global, has been take, make, waste. That's where we are, right? And it made sense at a certain size, but as the population grows, we're going to go to 9.5 billion by 2050, and as the middle class grows, we're going to have 3 billion more people in the middle class. If we consumed at the rate the United States consumes today, it would take 5 worlds just for the materials. Well, we don't have 5 worlds. So we need to think about how do you just start to reuse what you have, and how does a company like Dell think about that as an investment? Because even the electronics recycling that were less expensive. So there's always this theory that, oh, it's going to cost more, we can't go we're not going to go invest in that because it's more expensive. It's not. It doesn't have to be.
That's an interesting point, because I think a lot of companies oftentimes use the excuse saying, these type of methods will cost us money, it's not good for our bottom line. Right? And that's how do you bridge that gap of still trying to be profitable as a company, because you have to be, but then responsible as well. And obviously Dell is trying to prove that it can be done.
Just packaging alone, since 2009 when we started some of our packaging initiatives, we've saved the company $53 million.
Wow.
I mean, those are the significant dollars at the end of the day. But if you just go try it, it is doable.
Yeah.
It's very doable.
Does it frustrate you when you hear that, when companies use that as the excuse? It must, right?
And I think it frustrates its consumers because they have a low tolerance for excuses.
Yeah.
And our customers, so you need to meet that customer demand.
So does it must please you to a certain extent that you do see this consumer awareness growing and the demand growing for more responsible companies and more responsible business?
Absolutely, and there is a significant growth in just even the surveys that are out there. Like 95% of the companies today that are large companies are putting out corporate responsibility reports. As you said, 10 years ago, that wasn't true. And that demand, that push comes from your consumers and your customers.
You're on a panel that's called Tech Disrupt Sustainable Future. Very fancy title for this panel. But let's talk about that idea of tech disruption. Exactly what does that mean, and how is Dell trying to be a disruptor that way?
Well, it's interesting. So technology is going to disrupt is disrupting business models, supply chain models. I mean, if you just take Airbnb, if you think about it, they're bigger than Hilton hotels today. They had no startup costs like a normal hotel. They didn't have to buy any real estate. They didn't have to build buildings. I mean, think about that, and they're bigger than Hilton. So it is really disruptive, and we've customers like Uber. Everyone knows that model. Very, very creative, very different. So it's been really exciting to work with companies like those. But it's also going to be really disruptive when you look at the Internet of Things, and I think there is, everyone says that word, so I know it becomes somewhat meaningless at some point. But it is really about how do you use technology to monitor and make your processes much more efficient than they are today. So we're working, for instance, with a university in China, And it's been asked by the Chinese government to go really study the traffic patterns in the city. So we've installed monitors, and we are providing all the backup and the big data processing for them. And they're really starting to look at the traffic patterns and say, how do we make this more efficient? Why is this light taking so long? Why does the traffic work here the way it does? That's going to change how we all operate. So it's going to be smart cities from water. It'll be healthcare, how it's delivered. I mean, even just the remote diagnostics that are capable today that weren't, when we were growing up. It's going to change the delivery of healthcare. It should bring down the cost. It should bring up the accessibility. So we're excited. Education, we're very excited about what technology can do for education. I mean, remote learning didn't exist either.
Exactly. Now you can reach so many more.
It's hugely accessible.
People all over the world. And that's the thing about technology. You're right. You can access and change nearly every industry in nearly every aspect of life. Well, Tricia Thompson, thank you so much for your time. And it's amazing what you guys at Dell are doing. So please continue the great work.
Keep your eyes open. It'll keep happening.
We will do so.
We're excited.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, May.
Coming up next, thinking outside the box by using storytelling to teach children in Myanmar. Tin Mama Tet, or Tess as she's known, may still be relatively young in years, but she's already made a tremendous impact as an educational leader in her home country of Myanmar. One of her most powerful teaching methods is storytelling. Tess utilizes unique and outside-the-box methods to train educators and promote student-centered learning in religious schools across Myanmar. Tess is passionate about passing on traditional stories and uses them as a tool to promote critical thinking, academic skills, and moral values. I was able to speak to Tess at the annual meeting of the Clinton Global Initiative about her life story and what inspires her storytelling passion. All right, well, Tess, first of all, you are so dedicated to education. I mean, that's your thing.
Yeah.
Why is that? I mean, where did that come from for you?
There are three things which make a teacher what I am right now. The first thing is that I was really into teaching. I love teaching. One of my earliest memories would be I would be asking my neighbors, the younger friends, to come over to my house and ask them to become my students. And I would teach them.
How old were you?
I'm sure I was in primary school, but like they were like tiny. They just don't know anything. I remember that I was doing drilling activities with them and like writing on the wall, because my house is wooden house, so I just write on the wall with a chalk. And my mom used to be really upset with me because she's the one who has to clean up all the mess after that I have done. So I was really into teaching since I was young. And after that, I went to the primary school, a government school, and I found some teachers who doesn't really like mixed-blooded students, and like I was really dark, and I was really tiny, and I was mixed blood. Like my dad is Indian, so they don't really like that kinds of children, and we were very poor. So I was discriminated against when I was young. So I was really into teaching. Then I thought, no, when I grow up, I'm not going to be like a teacher here. Like, no, I really want to be a teacher who values all the children in the classroom, and I really want to make a difference in children's life. Those are some of the thinking that I had since I was young. And then I moved to a monastic school to study, where I found so many diverse communities, and the school monastic. The principal was really good, and he was really encouraging, and there were so many students who were coming from the hilly region who doesn't want to be child soldier at that time, so they just ran away from their area and come and studied in our area. So
and they would take them in, no matter who they were.
No matter where they come from, no matter which religions they come from, he would just take in. And now we've got like 1,000 students staying at the school, and 7,000 students are studying in that school. So after seeing all sort of things, and I really don't want to see children on the street or like children working at the tea shops and stuff like that. So I thought educating children will be very beneficial, and I also don't want to let the children to feel bad about themselves for not getting the education. So that's how I become a a teacher right now and working for the children passionately.
That's amazing that you wanted to be a teacher since you were so young. And be inspired that way. Came from somewhere, certainly. Let's talk about the monastic school form of education. Explain what a monastic school is.
Yeah, monastic school usually is a Buddhist school. So it's usually led by Buddhist monks, which are usually free of charge school for the children from poor background, who are orphans, street children, and they don't care where they come from. As I mentioned, they don't really care where they come from, what religions they are from, or what race they are. They accept everyone for a free education. And monastic school education has got very long history in the back. Since 11th century, since King Anoyata was ruling the country, the monastic schools play an important role back then as well. So they educate royal princes and skilled workers. So everyone was educated there. And back then, early 1900s, the literacy rates in Burma was quite high in Asia. And this happened because of the monastic schools. And right now, we had some struggle with previous governments, and we had to shut down monastic school again. But now we have been studying. The children are getting benefits from the monastic school, not only from Buddhist society, but also from other society as well.
Right. It just sounds, because it's so inclusive.
Yeah, it is very inclusive.
That's what education should be, right? It should be for everyone, no matter what background you're from and no matter what your economic situation is.
Yes, it is, yeah.
So that sounds great that that's starting to grow again, that kind of education.
Yeah.
Another thing that you like to promote, well, you love to promote, is the idea of storytelling.
Yes.
And the importance of that in a child's life and education.
Yeah.
Tell me how that came about. Why did you gravitate towards the idea of storytelling?
Yeah, it's also because of part of this comes from my family as well. My parents couldn't finish their education, and they only finished up to primary schools. So when I was young, they were not confident enough to read to me, or they don't even aware of reading to me. So I just have to teach myself to get better at the literacy and everything. But what they did really well was oral storytelling at night. So whenever they put me into bed, they would tell me stories. Usually the stories are about how to become better people, because we've got a lot of stories about moral values and how to behave, how to become a better person in the future. So these are the stories that I have grown up with, and I really love stories to listen or to tell to the children. Then in 2009, there was a training for us. It's called Youth Culture and Development Workshop, organized by Siam Mustafa from Thailand. And there I met a professor from Thailand who is really passionate about storytelling. And then we were trained about storytelling for one day. Then along with other friends of mine who are really interested in storytelling as well. So we found a group called Myanmar Storyteller in 2009. From that time on, we've been starting to collect stories across the country. We've been telling and performing stories in orphanages, schools, Islamic schools, Christian schools, even in senior homes, and everywhere. We do street performances when we need to do fundraising for disasters and everything. So that's what we do together.
So, and these stories are obviously universal if you're able to tell them to different kids and adults from different cultures and religions.
Yes.
So tell me specifically, what are these stories about, some of them?
Stories usually diversity and tolerance. Most of them are traditional stories reflect moral values and should be for the other. Like, how do we need to interact with the others? How should we behave in the society? So these are kinds of the story that we used to tell. But it is a bit different when I use the stories in my teacher trainings as well, because sometimes we more focus on literacy development of the students. So it's more focused on the content area, and sometimes we also focus on moral values, which we get from the books.
Well, Myanmar, obviously, many of us know it has had a volatile history in politics and, culture. And like you said, there's a lot of minority groups that are at odds. But, it's always said that education is the way to freedom. It's the way for more creativity and more peace.
Yeah.
I feel like you're sort of really trying to push for that, for change in your country. In that way.
Yeah. The education system has been really good before, a long time before, but now the quality has been decreasing, and it is really sad that the system has been focusing on exams rather than they're not focusing on critical thinking or creativity or like discussions, and it's really hard. So it is very one of the sad thing for me. To see that children are not exposed to questioning to the others, discussing with others, or their lives, but instead trying to spend so many times, like so many hours, memorizing the text that they have given from their teachers, and it's really tough. That's why in our teacher training we try to include a lot of interactive and participatory activities so that the teacher can experience it, because it's been like one generation left behind, and the teacher themselves, they have never experienced through what is like alternative teaching strategies, because they were in their classroom and their teacher told them to memorize and sit the exam, and if they got high marks they go to medical school, and if they don't get just normal school, which they might not even have a good job after that. So they don't have experience to it. So that's why I'm trying to let them experience what does it feel like to be in a center classroom? What does it feel like to be in a classroom where they nurture participations of the students and the discussions?
Your story is amazing, Tess. You're 25 years old. And you've already done everything that you've already done. That's amazing to me. So I have a feeling that you have a very long future ahead of you. Making a huge difference, not just in your country, but throughout the world. So good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, since 2008, funding for the arts has been cut in 80% of school districts across the U.S. It's forced some schools to terminate programs. Others worry they simply don't have enough funds to provide adequate art exposure to students. So professional arts volunteers in both Los Angeles and New York City decided to think outside the box by bringing arts into the classroom and helping students write their own acting scripts. As full-frame contributors Sandra Hughes found out, the program not only cultivates creativity, but it's also inspiring the children.
This may look like a regular after-school class, but it's anything but. For instance, before the lesson begins, this is the warm-up. Once their blood is flowing, their creativity starts flowing too. This is Young Storytellers.
We have 10 mentors meet 10 fifth graders, led by a head mentor, volunteer. All the adults are volunteers. And we teach them basic storytelling elements. And the mentors are essentially glorified secretaries, cheerleaders, and like a coach to their writer, and they help them write a 5-page screenplay.
So the rewriting process is sort of one of the more important parts of writing a screenplay. And we've talked about this a little bit already.
The volunteer mentors meet with these fifth graders for 9 weeks at Saturn Street Elementary in Mid-City, Los Angeles. The 1-to-1 ratio is something very special for these inner-city kids.
In the Young Storytellers, I feel like I'm letting all my imagination out.
And do these kids have imagination?
My story is about a stinky mutt that his name is Teddy, that he goes on a ship and he's so excited to play with the fancy poodles that is boarding on the ship.
My story is about a person who doesn't know his own name, but he does lots of stuff to try to find out.
The volunteers are mostly all in the entertainment business and want to share their love of the arts.
In volunteering and meeting these people who share your interests, and your world is expanded in not the same way as the kids, but you build and grow and become a better person as a result of it.
Max Capps is an assistant editor on reality TV.
It's like night and day, like from the first day they come in here to just like the last time, how much they open up. I think that's a great idea. And that kind of really gets them to leave the apartment, right?
Yeah.
So we'll put that in there.
Young Storytellers is in 50 schools in Los Angeles, one in San Francisco, and a couple in New York. In the United States, many large school districts have cut government funding to the arts, leaving it up to volunteers so the kids don't miss out.
My name's Nick, and I'm the head mentor for Saturn Street Elementary's group of young storytellers.
The actors audition for the roles in the screenplays.
So I can be like George David. No one knows who that is. Here we go. Oh my.
If you need a villain, there is no one more villainous than me!
The scripts are handed out and the actors do their best to bring life to the stories these kids have created.
Andrew Chavez.
The big show starts like any big show in Hollywood with a red carpet entrance.
Let's keep it going for Nicholas Ramirez.
Students, family, and friends are invited to see what the kids have created. But first, Max and Nicholas make their way to the stage to introduce Nicholas's story.
He's going to tell you about his script. It's called The Three with the Dream.
What are we gonna do? We only have $150. Buy a scratch ticket then.
Nicholas's aunt came to see his show and was surprised and entertained.
I like it. That's the first time I see something like that with him because he don't like to talk too much.
Oh, it felt pretty nice just because like my ideas were actually being shown.
He just was having such a good time and laughing, and the kids were laughing, and everything that was funny was, you know, it was really, it's worth it.
When the show ends, the kids are still on a creative.
Yes, I'm gonna remember it all day because I'm gonna put this, my VIP, next to my bed.
Will any of these kids become writers someday? Maybe, maybe not. But what they've gained in confidence, creativity, and courage will serve them no matter what they do. For Full Frame, this is Sandra Hughes in Los Angeles.
We'll be right back with this week's Full Frame Close-Up. By thinking outside the box, South Korean table tennis champion Soo-yeon Lee was able to paddle her life into a new direction. At the age of 9, Lee began her competitive career training extensively with Olympic gold medalist Chung Hwa-hyun. She helped Lee win 6 titles as the Korean national junior champion. After moving to the U.S., Lee spread her wings and began a successful career as a model and actress, but she never gave up on her first love. Now she uses modeling and acting to help promote table tennis. These days, she says it's not about winning, but encouraging others to have fun by following their own passion. She's worked with the country of Georgia and its National Youth School Sports League to encourage young girls to hit over the net or their other aspirations in life.
Table tennis is such quick sports, it's a fast sports. At the same time, you have to think and make a decision in your brain first before hitting the ball. So all combined with your brain thoughts and your body movement, you have to use all different portion of your body. So no other sports really can do. I had an amazing experience to competing in China, but in America, people even don't know it is Olympic sports, so which means they take the sports more fun, recreation, a fun way. Everybody can play, no matter what age group it is. So from little girl to old senior people and the big giants guy to skinny girls, and they can beat each other. started playing table tennis when I was 9 years old. And pretty much right away, after 6 months, I started competing locally with my age groups, and they went states and national and world. I had no time to think about it when I was competing in South Korea, because every day we wake up and we had to live by schedule for training and traveling for competitions. So I stopped competition 2010, and that time I had more free time, and then some modeling agency in LA actually found me and they want to sign with me, and so I started modeling professionally. I mean, I've been in many different photo shoots, sports, fashion, runway, but where I am right now, this is one of the legendary house and my favorite place to shoot as well. The owner of this house, his name is James Goldstein. He's the icon of the fashion world. And then also he's very interested in art and then architecture as well.
But actually you did a great job. I mean, he slammed a couple of times, which I was so surprised. But he has also good eye-hand coordination. So he had also good timing and rhythm. So you're very good, just need to play a little more.
Well, the last time we played, I hit a forehand smash that Su Yun couldn't handle. That was one of my big sports thrills.
I look like a rock and roll, wow, this is amazing. Me as well. I love red, and black combination.
Well, I think it's a great combination to be a world-class athlete and good-looking enough to be a model at the same time.
People think this is such an easy sport. First thing, when I meet people and they ask me what I do, I say I'm a professional, table tennis player. Okay, the most guys, they first word, I can beat you. Even super athlete like NBA or NFL players, they're professional athletes. They should know what's the difference between champion, athlete and then just normal players. So even they say, "Oh, I can beat you." In this sport, it's difficult, but 3 techniques I teach. First one is angle. So angle is very important. Even most people, they don't know how to hold the table tennis paddle. And the timing. And your movement. So I have to teach them correctly to start. Modeling is very glamorous. It's about look and then also about client choice. But table tennis, there is a coach, there is other players. It's about your dedication and practice. Only answer is winning. For modeling, it's it's not much pressure for me. Most athletes, because of the focus, they have a strong goal. After they finish their athlete career, it's really hard to move on else. I had this hard time for a year as well. I was luckily found what I enjoy, what I like to do now. But most athletes, they had a really hard time after they retire. I mean, I would like to say for the next generation, for us in your career and the winning is important, but make your time, make yourself to do other things as well. It's important for your life and the experience, the different cultures, and then, try some different, things.
Well, that's it for this week. Join the conversation with us on social media. We are CCTV America on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And now you can watch Full Frame on our new mobile app, available worldwide on any smartphone for free. Get the latest news headlines and connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Weibo. Search CCTV America on your app store to download today. And of course, all of our interviews can still also be found online at cctv-america.com. And let us know what you'd like us to take Full Frame next. Simply email us at fullframe@cctv-america.com. Well, until then, I'm Mei Lee in Los Angeles. We'll see you next time.